Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown, episode 31. And today we are going to be talking about, of course, the government shutdown, amongst other things. So, how are you?
I'll manage.
Government shutdown. This is day two. No. Yes, this is day two of the government shutdown. Troubled waters. And I am going to play the clip of Maxine Waters, admits as to why the Dems forced a government shutdown. Yeah, they forced it. And the reason why is because they want to keep illegals. They want illegals to keep getting health insurance. And that's
Healthcare.
healthcare. Healthcare. Yeah. And that's a no-no. Now, our healthcare
And
system.
also an ancillary up to $5,000 a month in benefits.
Right. So our healthcare system is already a hot mess, with the Affordable Care Act. And now they want to include, they've been including the illegals under the Biden administration. They was getting free healthcare, free housing, food stamps, money, work permit, driver's license, everything under the sun under the Biden administration. Trump administration is in office now, and they cut all that. And now it's time to pass a budget for American citizens, but the Democrats want to include continue healthcare for illegals.
This counter proposal that he filed, everybody can Google it, go pull it up. It's on the Senate's website and in the legislative text. Go to page 57 of Chuck Schumer's bill and look at section 2141. It says right there in plain language they want to repeal the health provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill.
So this is the provision, repeal of health subtitle changes. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, it's appropriate. Biden and Harris never should have had it in there, or the Democratic Party under Biden Harris never should have put it in there. It's poisonous. Why should we pay for people who have broken the law to crash the border and come here? They're illegal. Why should we pay for the health care? What is it the old say? Crime never pays. And now the Democratic Party has reversed that. Crime pays. Break the law, you get $5,000 a month.
And here's the clip of Maxine Waters.
Wastewater.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American
Excuse me, stop it right there. We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open, and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government shutdown, even if it means giving health care to people who aren't American citizens?
Well, that's what you're pushing on. What you're trying to do is you're standing here and you're trying to make me say that somehow we're going to put non-citizens over Americans. Quit it. Stop it. This is the kind of journalism we don't need.
No, I'm just
You're divisive.
questions.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no,
You're being divisive. No,
No,
please. You don't need to ask that question. You're just trying to get controversy here. You're not going to get it from me. We want to save health care for all people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, didn't we just read what the provision says that they don't like? So, I mean, who are we to believe? What we can read that's a part of the official bill, or her?
Right. And she
and
did
if she
make
wants to do
controversy.
that, first off, she said their government. It's not their government. They aren't part of this country. The other thing is, if they have a position as the Democratic Party where they want to save foreign lives, then come up with something as a provision of foreign aid. I mean, we can read, but I forgot. They have been dumbing down education, so people aren't supposed to be able to read. And we're supposed to rely on the propaganda engine of the communications industry, the news industry, and the entertainment industry for what is our reality instead of getting it ourselves by simply reading the bill in question or the provisions which have been cited. The bill says what it's supposed to say, so they don't like that. And we're supposed to be stuck on stupid and take the idea that somebody is saying, no, that's not something we should pay for. And you're going, they're lying because, well, we can see who's telling the tale. We can read. That's why our nickname should be Maxine Wastewater.
Right. Troubled waters. Now, what has been going viral is this.
Bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault. Bigotry will get you nowhere.
I love it when he starts making these declarations that are not supported by the Constitution, statutory law, or the chief executive, whom the Constitution empowers with being the chief diplomat.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody.
This group of invaders become the American people.
Right.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit. Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, you know, at least for a while until they learn English and they realize they hate us too. There's no way to.
So I wanted to ask you now.
Hey, Musk is working on XAI right here in Memphis, so that's right up his alley. Brilliant.
I wanted to ask you. So now that the government is shut down, what is open and what is closed?
Well, you'll be able to get the FBI, Port Authority. You'll be able to get air traffic controllers. You will probably get the supervisors coming out of their offices and manning the TSA checkpoints. You will have the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Space Force. You'll get CIA and all of the above. You might get some people furloughed and laid off, and there is one person, Vaught, in the administration. He was in Trump's last administration, and he has been plotting over the last several years on a scheme, knowing that the Democrats were going to do this. So he says it's a nice opportunity to get rid of a lot of surplus employees that don't need to be on the federal rolls because they aren't really pulling their own weight and earning their paychecks. So whatever that is, I mean, it's the average person isn't going to see much about it. You can't get evicted on Section 8 if your check doesn't come in. Maybe you need to start thinking about you've been on Section 8 long enough and go get a job if you can, especially if your mama and your grandmama have been on it or the equivalent. The next thing is
what about
spend wisely.
What about food stamps? People who
food stamps, that's not going to be cut off because those are negotiable. And also the money for that's already out. You know, they have the cards now. Right. Might hurt somebody who's saying, hey, I'll trade you $100 worth of food stamps for $80 cash. That's not why we're paying for it.
And what about Medicaid and Medicare?
Medicaid, Medicare won't be impacted because what happens, you don't have to pay out of your pocket right there. It's billed at the end of the month, just like most other bills. And it would be going through the system to be paid at a later time. Hopefully by then, these clowns will have not been so adamantly against stripping the provision out of the affordable health care bill that says, the new provision that says you can take people who commit crimes to get here and you can reward the criminality by saying, hey, we'll give you up to $5,000 a month benefits including free medical care, which the rest of us don't get. And since I went over to Medicare a couple of years ago, and my insurance bill went from $1,650 some a year to I pay $14,000 a year now under Medicare, which is absolutely ridiculous. So if I've got to pay that, I'll be damned if I want to be giving it away to somebody that criminally crashed the border and maybe an ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hamas, Iranian, North Korean, or part of the People's Republic of China who is infiltrated here to set off some explosive device to commit some type of sabotage. I don't particularly like that. Oh, isn't that cute?
They're going ham on the memes, and rightfully so. I think they should, because the Democrats are the ones holding up a bipartisan budget bill to be passed.
By the way, pay careful attention. This is what you need to be aware of when you start assessing who's being truthful. You read the provision.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what they're doing. The bill of goods they're trying to sell you instead of the goods.
Right. Exactly. I want to play this clip here of Chuck Schumer speaking on the floor about the bill. So he's saying Schumer is angry that Democrats are being accused of giving illegals free health care. The law prohibits undocumented immigrants from getting payments from Medicare, Medicaid, and ACA. There's no money going there, which...
Well, Schumer is an idiot.
Yeah, he's a liar.
He explained the allocations under Biden-Harris for just that purpose, that the Congress that they were controlling passed.
I want to play this clip here real quick.
The American people know it's not beautiful. And so they know, our Republican colleagues know that the American people are fully behind us when it comes to lowering costs, but also when it comes to health care and making sure that those premiums don't go way up. And then I spoke to Speaker Johnson directly in the room. I told him, because he can't debate health care, because he knows it's not, the American people are on the side of wanting these increases, even Republicans, I told him to stop making up stories that too many Republicans are lying through their teeth. They say, oh, the Democrats want undocumented immigrants to get health care, to get the federal dollars of health care. That is utter bull. And they know it. The law prohibits undocumented immigrants from getting payments from Medicare, Medicaid, or the ACA. There's no money, not a penny, of federal dollars that are going there. So why do they bring this up? Because they're afraid to talk about the real issue, which is health care for American citizens, health care for people who need the health care and can't afford these premiums. Let me say it again. Undocumented immigrants cannot receive premium tax credits by law.
The lies stick it in your throat and you have to clear it, don't you? And look, some of us have actually been caught up in that trap that Biden-Harris is responsible for, and the Democrats in Congress, House and Senate are responsible for. We know you're lying through your teeth. That's an appeal to people down there, you'd think, in their 20s who aren't even reflecting on it, because that's so far away up in the future. When you get old and decrepit like that, you won't have to worry about it. Things will be better. I have better things to think of. No, you don't, because it gets here real quick.
Also,
Quickly.
Another point there onto why he's lying is because under the Biden administration, there were a lot of companies receiving millions and billions of dollars to aid and help and give resources to the illegals.
Yeah.
So no, on paper, it wasn't illegals getting Medicaid or Medicare, but these quote unquote NGOs, these medical companies and businesses and corporations and nonprofits, they were getting subsidy funding from the federal government and administrating free health care to the illegals.
It's called criminality to get around and come up with a concealed method of doing it. And by the way, there's still this other thing. United States Criminal Codes, Title 8, Section 1324, giving aid, comfort, assistance, etc., to illegal aliens is a felony. And they've been doing it. And we read what was highlighted on the bill where that would be prohibited. Now,
it says here, subtitle E, other health provisions, repeal of health subtitle changes, subtitle B of subtitle 7 of the Act title and Act to provide for reconciliations pursuant to Title 2 of H, CONRES.14, I don't know what that means, is repealed, and any law or regulation referred to in such subtitle shall be applied as if subtitle and the amendments made by such subtitle had not been enacted.
Yeah, in other words, they're stripping what Biden and Harris got put in there. That's what that means. And the provisions they're talking about allow just what he's denying happened. And besides, if that's what it's about, then why don't you point out to the American public specifically the provisions where the Republicans are trying to cut back on Medicare for U.S. citizens?
Exactly.
They can't. And then the other thing is, as it's worded, what's wrong with it? And it's like they're just trying to embarrass the Republican Party because they've got too many pet projects that are stripped out of that big, beautiful bill and other things like this. So they want to shut down the government, and they're getting on and lying. And this time the problem is that the communications industry is getting nervous because they've lost all credibility. They can read the reports where people are turning away from them and going to something new. People are getting their news and things like that and entertainments from other than the traditional sources, and it's costing them money.
And I just want to play this clip here because this was back in 2019, the Democrat presidential candidates, and they were asked a question about illegals and healthcare.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay.
They all raised their hand, and that was Biden, Kamala, all of them.
Come Queen and Joe in the hole.
So, and this was before he was quote unquote elected back in 2019, 2020, but they all said that they will provide health care for illegals, and they did.
They said it. They promised it. Now they want to distance themselves from. That's not what that's a lie. Where did they get that? Well, you did it. Remember? You put it on the net. You can't get it off. You hide it, but you can't get it off. That wasn't on the net originally, but it got on the net, so we can go back and review it. 2019, 6 years ago, all these people said they put their hands up. How's it going to do it, so?
I just want to ask you one more thing about the shutdown, and then I want to bring up Pete Hesech. How long you think the government will be shut down? Do you think they're going to come out with some type of resolution over the weekend?
If I am not mistaken, they did this twice in 2018. The second time was the longest in American history. Now, this kind of thing was just unheard of until about 35 years ago. In fact, the whole thing about government shutdown was something that the press came up to sell newspapers or push CNN or Fox, because Fox was just getting started and nobody else was doing these 24/7 news formats. That was something new. So it's a good way to generate, oh, what are they talking about? I got to check this out. So people tune in, and the commercial sponsors, Budweiser or Gillette, they get all happy, and some few decades later they can put up commercials that demean their masculine customers and think they can get away with it. But I mean, you know.
So do you think that by Monday maybe there'll be some type of resolution?
Maybe. It's like somewhere in here, this is so slam dunk simple. Read what it says, read the rest of it, and who's lying. So you want to, before too many people do that, they need, meaning the Democratic Party, to back off and start switching to, it was just a negotiation tactic. They were trying to get us to give up something for the American public, and we were protecting it, but in the interest of so many who will be suffering if we don't, we'll concede. Oh, garbage. You had a BS position to begin with. It's part of this failed thing of you stupidly opening up the borders for the selfish purpose of trying to stuff certain states, California, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, New York, New Jersey, and places like that, so you can pick up representatives in the House and not lose them. And that was selfish, because there are a lot of people in this world that hate us, and they were kept out with tight border security, and now you just take everything down. And they just walk across with backpacks filled with military-grade explosives and transmitting detonation devices, and they don't even have to commit suicide to blow something up. They don't have to infiltrate. They don't have to hijack jet planes. They've already put the explosives in place, or the toxins, or whatever they're going to do. And right now, Homeland Security is saying we need to be on high alert, because they've gotten indications, like they got back just prior to 9/11, that something's getting ready to go down.
So speaking of military, I want to play this because Pete Hesech, he gathered all of the top generals and the military in one room this week and gave a speech, you know.
And it wasn't just generals.
Yeah.
They brought in top-ranking non-commissioned officers. See, they have now, because of the fact that sergeants or non-coms do what they do, they have very high-ranking non-com positions, sergeant of the army type thing. And these are people that may have master's degrees, PhDs, and such, but they choose to be non-commissioned officers. In the military, they call it being honest. And they brought in these guys and the generals. In other words, the ones that had been there 20 plus years, 25 years, the experts who had made a career, a successful career of what they had done, the people that make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I love his remark about you don't want fat troops who can't perform. It's all about doing what you have to do, irrespective of what your gender is. There should be uniform physical fitness standards, and that includes generals. And he says we don't need any fat generals running around the halls of the Pentagon either, or admirals.
So let me just play this clip, and then it's another one I want to play as well.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our Joint Force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already.
Used to be, but Biden, Harris, and before that, Obama administrations wiped it out.
Wiped what out?
Physical training.
Yeah, he said there was no PT. So I don't understand that.
In other words, it used to be like in high school. When I was in high school, junior high school, every day you had to go to PT, and you had to go do your workouts, do your runs, do your play.
Why did they get rid of that?
Just because it might cut somebody out from realizing their dreams. It might cut back on diversity.
Well, speaking of that, I want to play this clip of Pete Hegseth talking about the whole diversity DEI in the military.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. No more.
Love it. By the way, why call it the Department of War? Let's go back to the way it used to be for most of the countries or most of the country's history. War Department. I like that better.
Yeah, War Department. Maybe they wanted to modernize it, Department of War. I don't know.
They didn't modify it to Department of Defense until I was born.
Oh, okay.
So it's a new thing. I haven't been around the whole country's history, but that term, Department of Defense, has been around just slightly less time than I have. And I think War Department sounds better.
And you know what? Everything I appreciate what he's saying, because this is the military. This is not about your feelings. You are a soldier. This is about taking command, knowing how to take orders, doing your job well, tip-top shape. You need to be focused because it's about protecting and saving, our country here. When you look at other militaries in other countries, no one's overweight. No one, they don't have all this extra stuff. So yeah, I stand by Pete Hegseth. And a lot of people were second guessing, he doesn't know what he's doing. I think he does.
Have you watched clips of the Russian army or the People's Army for China or the North Korean army marching? Even the ladies. It's better choreographed than a Broadway play. Every leg is exactly parallel to every other one. Every eye gaze is exactly on the same. It's not like watching an American body of troops where they are approximately in line. You look at the rifles and some of them are this way, some are that way. When you look at them, all of them are perfectly aligned. They've been practicing. They've been running hard. They've been training hard. So now I noticed something in Military Times a few years ago during the Biden administration. They were no longer going to focus on being in shape to run or hold up during the airborne shuffle for long distances. They were just going to practice on short sprints because that's all you needed when you ran to and from the helicopter. But those things do break down quite frequently, especially when the people that are supposed to be running stuff are there because of their identity rather than their ability.
Right. Well, one more thing. Speaking of the military, it's a lot of job opportunities for Americans, especially American men. And I also want to play this clip here.
And by the way, if y'all didn't know, but most plumbers and electricians who then go on to own their own businesses make more than most doctors and lawyers today. It's actually becoming a national security issue because the DoD, Department of Defense, is looking for 600,000 electricians and welders in the next 6 years. And they don't exist. And that is just to maintain our military equipment, not to build new. And by the way,
so yeah, I think people need to go get that certification in an electrician or a welder and work for the military.
They have great retirement benefits.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They got good benefits. Yeah. And you will always be employed. All right.
Of course, the officers have it better, but that's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was touching on that when I was saying they also brought in, and see, this is not productive public relations. They said the generals. They did not mention that they brought in senior non-coms. See, I had a close and personal friend. He's retired now. He had 6 graduate degrees, postgraduate degrees, and he went in as an enlisted man after he had a law degree, a master's of law, doctorate of law, doctorate in forensics, and all this other stuff. And he came in as an enlisted man. So he wound up senior chief petty officer for the 6th Fleet. And they kept trying to brevet him up to rear admiral and then vice admiral. And, he said he wanted, and then they said, we'll give you a regular rank as an brigadier, rear admiral, that's 2 stars. And he said, no, I want to remain an honest man. So he did something about taking a huge truck convoy down there to New Orleans when they had Katrina. It was funny. They had him with the Humvee and the 50 cal on top. He was in his dress uniform, dress blues. And he told his man, he said, racket. He went back. There was a live belt in there. So now clear the way. The U.S. Navy is coming through. And they did. But, so they've got people that are non-coms now with more academic proficiency than some of the high-ranking officers. And the U.S. military has a lot of senior officers with master's degrees and PhDs and things, which is a change with the way it's been. So we need a professional army. And it used to be that if somebody had a pending criminal case, you could get him out of it by having him join up. They don't want him now because this stuff is too high tech.
So I want to play this clip. I meant to play it earlier. So this is Joy Reid saying warns America of dangerous MAGA plans, right?
Joy Reid is another idiot.
Well, once we're going to listen to this clip, right? And what she's warning of the plans is actually something that we used to have when, the economy was good. And that is what most Americans want. So take a listen.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern. They need people to want fewer things. Is that if you go back before...
Did you catch that?
I heard that. What kind of stuck on stupid plantation is this fool from?
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, why wouldn't we?
You have got to have lost your mind to even utter something like that.
Where are we supposed to be headed if we don't want those things? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, what's wrong with what you make? You can pass on to your kids or whomever you choose to bequeath it to. What's wrong with that?
Right. And why do we don't want to? And then
we don't want to pay a whole lot of taxes for freebies who are living on. I paid a lot of taxes. And I resent paying taxes so somebody can stay at home and screw to their heart's content while I'm going out and working my ass off.
Right.
I don't like that. Especially if you're able-bodied. You're sick, infirm, disability, okay. But if your disability is stuck on stupid and being a lazy shit, then, you know, that's your problem. I don't want to pay for it. I think for able-bodied people, there should be a cap on how much you could get. There should be no such thing as any able-bodied somebody having a multi-generational receipt of public assistance. That's poisonous. There are enough hard-working people out there in the United States of America. Hell, I have some in my house right now correcting stuff. Hard-working people. They can work. They don't need to be paying for you screwing and busting out babies like you some kind of prize breeder on a ranch or a facility or a plantation raising livestock, breeding livestock. That's not your business.
Lieutenant Colonel George E. Hardy, one of the last surviving members of the Tuskegee Airmen who flew 21 combat missions in World War II. Like many Tuskegee Airmen, Hardy continued serving as a military pilot after the war. He passed away. The last surviving Tuskegee.
Where is he from? Ohio?
Not sure. I could look it up. So I wanted to, highlight last surviving of the Tuskegee Airmen to fly combat mission in World War II. He was 18 years old at the time. Oh my God. Wow. So I wanted to get your...
Well, you know what? That's interesting because that just strips George Herbert Walker Bush of his official distinction as supposedly the youngest combat pilot for the United States in World War II when he was supposedly 19 when he got shot down.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a child.
Well, he was 18. Yeah, he was young.
Yeah.
So, born in South Philadelphia, June 8th, 1925, he was the second of 7 children, grew up during a time of racial segregation. Hardy graduated from South Lafayette High School only 6 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor and right on the cusp of World War II.
Well, more power to him. 332nd is a very, very impressive unit. I was well acquainted with the person that was chairwoman of the Tuskegee Airmen's. I forget what they call it. They have an institute too. Remember the thing about the scholarships that they were trying to give for the pilots, training pilots.
Oh, yes, I remember.
She was married to one of the Tuskegee.
Yes,
so I was trying to help her out.
Yeah, and we interviewed her. We interviewed her. Yeah.
Dolores Brown.
Yes. So, listen, when we talk about the military, when we talk about fitness and pride and being focused on the mission, it seemed like during that time, those soldiers, white, black, or what have you, World War II and even in Vietnam, compared to today, I understand why Pete Hegseth want to bring back the respect that the military, really once hold, like the optics and the reputation and what it's like to serve in the military. So, and I'm sorry, the Tuskegee Airmen, Harlem Hellfighters, and others went through hell on and off the battlefield.
Harlem Hellfighters was 1917, so that was hell. It was the largest division in the U.S. Army. There were more than 18,000 members, and the Harlem Hellfighter was composed of the black contingent and the Puerto Rican contingent. You remember that old song, There Is a Rose in Spanish Harlem?
Mm-hmm.
Part of Harlem was Puerto Rican. It was known as Spanish Harlem, and the other part of Harlem was more composed of folk that had come from the American South. So they put the Puerto Rican contingent and the Southern American contingent together, and it was the largest division in World War I, not just black, but U.S. Army. They got a different deal because John J. Pershing effectively sent the black troops to fight with the French under the French in French uniforms. Now, some people want to call that racist, but John J. Blackjack Pershing got his name Blackjack because he went through West Point in his mid-20s, not his late teens. And he was from the Midwest, and he had been a school teacher teaching black students before he got into West Point. So he volunteered to be assigned to the 10th Cavalry, aka the Buffalo Soldiers. So he quickly rose up in the ranks and became ultimately the commanding officer of the 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers. So he got the derisive nickname of Blackjack because of that. But when he got to be commanding general of the U.S. Expeditionary Force to Europe, I guess he did the black troops a favor by assigning them to French control rather than to American control, where they would have been condemned to being under generals and colonels from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, and all of that.
And let me just say this as well. I just want to say this. Right, having you going into details, which is good, but the only reason why I wanted to, first of all, acknowledge and respect, that man and others who served, especially under those conditions in the climate of the United States of America, in the military and in society. But, just piggybacking off of what Pete has just was saying, as far as getting rid of all the DEI, the climate change or whatever, there was no such thing as DEI. When you talk about Tuskegee Airmen, Harlem Hellfighters, and many others, they didn't join the military because of DEI. You talk about merit, that they probably were better than the white soldier because they intentionally wanted the black soldiers to fail, so they tried to make the test harder, they tried to make the PT, the physical part harder, and they surpassed with flying colors. So yeah, take DEI out of it, because when we're talking about black Americans here in America, everything that has been accomplished that black Americans has contributed, especially when it comes to the military, was not because of DEI, it's because they earned it, they deserved it, and it was solely on merit. So,
in other words, you got to work twice as hard as everybody else to get anywhere at all, not you get there because of what you look like. Now, the reason I brought it up is because remember our discussion earlier today on Bad Bunny being from Puerto Rico? It was an opportunity to say there's been a long connection between Puerto Rico and the United States and the black folk therein, all right?
Of course, yes, of course.
So that's why I brought it up, 1917. Yeah. And the Tuskegee Airmen is a good thing to cover your point. It's famously the only fighter escort unit that did not lose a single bomber it was escorting to air intercept.
Right, so that's it.
The rest of the B-17, B-24 crews, when Doolittle took over the 8th Air Force and that spread to the 15th, where the 332nd was down in Italy, were using the bombers as bait to draw the Luftwaffe up so the fighter pilots could shoot them down. So they frequently left the bait to their own devices, and a lot of losses were incurred. Benjamin O. Davis copied something from the British or the Royal Navy, which was the convoy system. He used the bombers as the freighters, the cargo ships, and like the U-boats had to go to the convoys to kill ships, that brought them right into the lap of the escorting destroyers. Well, what happens is he uses the bomber stream as a convoy to bring the Luftwaffe into the laps of the 332nd so they could kill them. And they did not have to leave the bombers to their own devices to get shot down ruthlessly. So in case you're wondering what that meant to the white folk, and it had a lot to do with how we moved on to ending segregation, is the 8th Air Force lost 52,000 dead in 16 months, and these are airmen, they're not on the ground. And another whole bunch, 30-some thousand, that were captured. So that's 85,000 casualties, so to speak. And the 15th Air Force lost somewhere 35,000. So that was almost a suicide squad thing. So here you have the 332nd, these black flyers who are not supposed to be able to handle complicated, fast machinery. And they give these white pilots or these bombers a reprieve from being on a suicide mission, being bait. So a lot of the bomber pilots came from the South. So when the civil rights thing hit and they were talking about desegregation, not integration, which is a misnomer, desegregation, there were some friends that said, we remember these guys. Dad, granddad wouldn't be here but for them. So, treat them with a little bit of respect.
Okay. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of A Justice for All with Judge Joe Brown. And we will see you in the next video.